Yeah, it's on.
А этот странный звук, это чей?
Это
This
мой.
is a strange noise. Ah, it's from you.
It's my noise. It's my
It's your noise.
vacuum cleaner, automatically vacuum cleaner.
Okay, I suggest to wait 2 more minutes and we will start. Just waiting colleagues to join us.
Sure.
Знаю, что многие в записи хотели посмотреть.
Мгм.
Some of our members are very shy. They don't believe in their English, and they watch records because now in Russia you can use browser app for translation, automatically translation, and it's really good. Andrei, I think we should start.
Mhm. Okay, let's start then. So today we are discussing Philippines stock market and with Jonathan Reviews, Jonas. Jonas, thank you very much for joining us. We are looking forward to your speech about market in your country because we are really interested in investments in emerging markets. It's partly because it's difficult for Russian people to invest in developed market, but it's just one reason. We also see much more opportunities in emerging markets comparing with already developed one.
Yeah. I think everyone's trying to look for better yields, and I think
Yeah.
the timing of this uh, briefing. Again, when we discussed this was a few months ago. Surprisingly, last night, the U.S. central bank governor mentioned, longer longer rates to stay higher. So this is a challenge for investors and the like. Okay, so without further ado, let me just
Yes.
start by again, it's really investing in the Philippines, resilience amid uncertainty. I think this is what I can say about the Philippines at this time, mainly because um, we are a country that, compared to our peers in the ASEAN, we lack the infrastructure. So in the Philippines before, probably in the 60s to the 80s, the Philippines was ranked to be one of the more developed economies. But we eventually went through a lot of challenges that we became the least among the ASEAN members. So there's still a view of uncautious optimism brought about by, again, we finished the pandemic, we've reopened. Given that the Philippines is over 110 million Filipinos, consumer spending and business confidence eventually improved. And 70% of the Philippine economy is driven by consumption. So we're like China, we're like the US, that 70% of the economy, as long as everybody will spend, the economy will still grow of at least 5%. And the 5% growth in emerging markets is quite good compared to developed economies that would probably grow between 1 to 2%. So, however, challenges abound brought about by tighter financial conditions and eventually the fallout from the geopolitical tensions, whether we talk about Ukraine, Israel, to a certain extent, the Philippine-China relations has also affected us. And this is also keeping prices elevated. Let's not forget the impact of El Nino or the climate change, because this is eventually a challenge for a lot of companies here in the Philippines. So, of course, from a government perspective, and this is what is very important that I'd like to share with you, is the fact that in the Philippines, we are one of those countries that is betting on government infrastructure so that we will accelerate growth. So this is, I think, the more important. So the other one, of course, is that, again, why invest? It's really the long-term story of the Philippines remains solid. We need to be able to catch up with our peers in terms of infrastructure. So strong investments driven in infrastructures to support industries, particularly manufacturing. So let me just give you a very good example. You know, in the Philippines, because of the mad cow disease in the 1980s, it is only in 2023 that the United Kingdom started exporting beef again in the Philippines. So this is a challenge for us because, of course, with the extreme heat, our poultry and livestock is also suffering. So, of course, the young population, the cash remittances were one of the top 3 in the world, is eventually creating roughly $60 billion in terms of dollar revenue coming to the Philippines in the form of remittances and outsourcing revenue. So this eventually supports consumption. So this is something that's very good. And then, of course, the Philippines, and I think this is something that hasn't been out, but most likely this will be it will be announced next month. The Philippines is located strategically among the ASEAN countries. So if we were to take any aircraft, whether we talk about Thailand, Indonesia, Malaysia, we are just roughly 3 hours away from each other through an aircraft. In terms of boat, shipment can arrive in maybe 1 to 3 days or less, depending on how fast the boat is. But definitely, this is something that could create an ASEAN plus supply chain. So this is, I think, very important to talk about. Meaning, we understand what's happening in Europe because of the Ukraine-Russian conflict. We also know what's happening in the Middle East. So we don't want to take part of any of these supply concerns. So ASEAN plus Australia, Japan, Korea is starting to build the free trade agreement so that we can isolate ourselves. Now, one of the things that is so important about not just the Philippines but ASEAN, when I talk about it, is because 50% of Asia's export and ASEAN is to itself. So there is that self-reliance among ASEAN countries. So this is very important. So when we look at the statistics of the Philippines, you will see that we have a population of 114 million. The average age of Filipinos are around 25.3 years old. What does this mean? So between 20 to 60, you have an income potential that will shift and a rising middle class. So compared to other countries in the ASEAN, a decade from today, the Philippine population is still at 1%. We will be the only country that has a population growth of 1%. So I guess the reason for that is we're mainly Roman Catholic. So that's the key challenge. And of course, when we think about our unemployment rate, we're at 3.5%. So that's actually a very good sign that we're seeing traction in the economy. Although our full growth rate for 2023 is 5.6%. So in 2022, we were growing at 7.6%. So we're normalizing because we just had the presidential elections in 2022. So it typically takes 1 to 2 years before the new government is able to come up with its spending plan. So this is the challenge. Now, the opportunity is that services continue to grow, which accounts for 60 to 70% of our economy, followed by industrial that is just roughly 15%. We believe that if we are able to industrialize, the Philippines is able to grow faster than what used to be the 7.6%. Because we will be able to improve jobs. So underemployment would probably fall below 10%. So agriculture, which used to be 30% of our GDP, the contribution is now 8%. So this is a lot of opportunities, whether you think about foreign direct investments coming from your country, that, technology transfer can help. And this is what we've been telling a lot of investors, whether you look at it from a foreign direct investment or you look at it from an equity perspective. So right now, the inflation in the Philippines is currently at 3.7. The central bank rate is at around 6.5. And our foreign exchange as of today is at 57. So from the last time I spoke to your group, the peso was meandering at around 55.50 to around 56. So this is an additional 2 to 3% discount in investing in the Philippines. So not much has changed from our last discussion. The government is still focused in trying to ensure food security, improve infrastructure, reduce transport and logistic costs, and we want to be able to have affordable food. Now, the build more projects continue to grow and to be accomplished. So we've seen a lot of, there's been new developments of new roads that will pass through a very scenic route when it comes to near the shorelines, from the capital city of Manila all the way to the upper part of the Philippines. So this will enable a lot of potential manufacturing space. So if we look at the recent growth trajectory of the Philippines, you'll notice that in the fourth quarter, private investments eventually grew close to 11%. This was at the fourth quarter. Government spending started to grow in the third quarter, closer to around 7%. But in the fourth quarter, typically most of the spending happens between the first and third quarter. Towards the fourth quarters, there's really not much spending. But I'd like all of you to look at consumer spending, because this is 70% of the economy. And we eventually saw a growth rate of above 5.7%. So this is actually a good sign that things are doing well for the Philippines. So that's why if you try to look at the potential chart of GDP, you're starting to see the potential acceleration in the Philippine economy. So hopefully in 2025, we should grow at least 6.5%. So comparing the Philippines compared to our ASEAN neighbors, the Philippines is set to grow at 5.8%, slightly behind Vietnam's 5.9%. But if you were to look at 2025, we think now most of the infrastructure programs of the Philippines have already started. We should see some acceleration in 2025. So this is a very important period for the Philippine economy. So even the central bank, hopefully moving forward, the risk-adjusted forecast for inflation is at 3.5% from the current 4% or 3.9%. So either way, if you round it off, it's still 4%. So of course, we are still challenged, and this is something that I think is almost synonymous to most of the economies in the ASEAN, is that we're all challenged by upside risk to inflation, whether electricity prices, oil prices, transport costs, and food. So these are things that continue to weigh that the central bank will most likely keep rates unchanged. Now, when we look at the forecast, and we've recently made some changes, we're looking at the peso to slightly improve to 56.50 from where we are at 57. So we're looking at a growth rate of 5.8%, an inflation of 3.9. So hopefully the first half we'll see the brunt of inflation, but in the second half we get to see more improvements. And we're still optimistic that we'll probably see a cut of 50 basis points. Although what is already on with the recent series of unfortunate events, the Key Bridge accident in Baltimore, the Iran, Israel, and Hamas conflict, I think has created, compared to last month, the geopolitical risk has deteriorated almost 2 times. So this is actually something that could have an effect on inflation, particularly on oil. So this is something that, again, we're worried about. We're still keeping our year-end view of 7,100 for the Philippine stock market. But I'd like all of you to focus on 2025. We're looking at 8,500. And this is primarily driven that most of the infrastructure programs have already started and are near completion for us. For most that will benefit the Philippines, like tourism and eventually the retail sectors. Now, just probably sharing with you what could change in the situation is basically the risk that the U.S. Fed will probably, raise rates further in the second half of the year if the U.S. economy continues to strengthen, and the risk of a slowdown in growth from a 5.8 to a 5.3%. And that could also escalate inflation to 5.8 and having a year end of 58. So these are things that could have affected the stock market. And for the Philippine stock market, from a 7,100, we could probably meander closer to 6,000. So at present, the stock market's at 6,450. So these are the levels of year-end. So the key factor really when it comes to what will drive growth in the Philippines are still driven by food, retail, construction, and real estate. So again, food, retail are well supported by the BPO sector and OFWs. So remember, this accounts for around $60 billion. So 30 billion is practically being spent for BPOs here in the Philippines in terms of revenue. So unlike OFWs, probably just half of the 30 billion, but still, that is a very strong consumption growth for the Philippines. So tourism, manufacturing are the key bets that I know that will drive Philippine growth. Mining is, I think, probably the third, followed by gaming. But the problem with mining is there's still some legislation that is still being made. So the threats, again, are more driven by the geopolitical risks, climate change, and of course, the policy tightening. So these are the challenges that I think is not just unique for the Philippines, but for the rest of the globe. So when we talk about why am I still bullish despite all of the threats and the challenges abound, because the government will continue to spend. They're focused so much on trying to keep government funding just to keep infra spending continuing while keeping the rest in check. Meaning those that are not necessarily important services that can take a backseat, they'll do that in favor of infra spending. So we still have favorable demographics. We have a very strong credit rating despite our debt to GDP is around 63%. The government can afford to issue more debt as compared to other countries that are already beyond 70% of GDP. So we believe that the Philippines is able to pay these debts. So when I was asked to talk about how do you look at investing in the Philippines? So let me just give you what kind of companies to invest in. So these are, people want to look at the multi-bagger. So companies that grow in terms of price appreciation by more than 2 to 3 times. And the common themes are there's a strong vision, the stewardship from owners, there's a solid management, there's market leadership, there's strong competitive edge built over time, there's solid profitability, partly reflecting the industry. Most of the time, they're the market leader. So just again, reflecting 1 and 2. Resilience, focus on cash flow, balance sheet strength, avoiding big missteps. So these missteps are making sure that if they went into a new industry and when things are a bit shaky, they're not afraid of going back to their core business. So often relative modest size and reasonable valuations. And I believe the stock market today compared to the start of the year, we've erased the gains. So again, this is a position where compared to the highest in 2018 at 9,000, we're more, again, we're still at a discount by more than 35%. So in terms of the last, it's a bit of serendipity, right business, right time, and the earnings momentum. So let me share with you a few of these companies. So SM or the SM Investments Group, this is the biggest mall operator. Jollibee is one of the biggest food chains in the Philippines. They're famous for their fried chicken and spaghetti. So their pasta. So of course the utility company Meralco, which is the biggest distributor of power. The Ayalas are basically in banking and infrastructure. ABS-CBN is the biggest communications company. You have Dito CME, which is the third telco player, Globe being the second, and PLDT being the first. So the other are holding companies that are into food and other utilities like JG Summit, Metro Pacific, and Alliance Global. So these are just a few of the companies. They're all part of the stock market index. So this is an example of one of those. This is Universal Robina. So you'll notice that from 2006 to 2010, it took 4 years. And after that, after breaking a certain level, prices went up 10 times. So the present consolidation that we're seeing in the prices today, this is actually one of those good opportunities. The other one is ASEN. So ASEN Corporation is more into the renewables. So it took 8 years before the prices went up 4 times. Okay. So again, reflecting what's happening in the global markets, we're seeing prices adjusting again. So these are good opportunities. Another one's Aboitiz Equity Venture. It's a holding company, but more geared into the power sector. So again, in 2007, 2010, it took 3 years before they were able to increase their price 5.2 times. So it took them 13 years. So again, there are a lot of multi-baggers that are present. So here's another one.
Yeah,
Oh,
and you
sorry.
think they still have potential to get back their high points?
Yes, because these are very solid companies. These are market leaders.
Uh-huh.
So I think that's the reason why I'd like to show them as examples, because over time, they're the strongest. So here's another one, which is the SM. So when you look at their performance, so if you remember the 2008 financial crisis, the global financial crisis, 2007, 2010, they got 3.5 times. 2013 to 2017, 4 years, 1.8 times. So they are showing resilience in terms of price movements. And these are mostly held by big funds. So this is another one, which is the real estate arm. So it's not moving as the others, but again, still showing the potential of 4.25 times price adjustment. So these are a few of those. These are very core, and this is the biggest bank in the Philippines. I used to work for this bank, but again, the price adjustment is only 2.75 times. So the banking sector is growing slower compared to food, real estate, and eventually power. These are things that the Philippines need at this point in time in terms of investment. So these are just the list of a few of the brokers.
And through that period, the inflation was something about 3%.
Yes. So the nice thing about the other companies that I've mentioned, they also have dividend yields. And let me go back to a few of those slides. I think this is the one. Hold on. Next. Most of the companies that are here, like PLDT, Globe, Ayala, and Meralco, offer dividend yields between 5 to 6% based on current prices. So meaning, if you are going to invest today, you have the very big potential of just holding them and then yielding yourself at least 5%. So although you can get 6% in terms of dividend yield, but there is at present there is a new law that is still in Congress, that the dividend yield tax will increase from 10 to 15%.
Uh-huh.
So
It's
this is something
withholding
that,
tax, so it should be paid at the company.
yes.
Mhm.
So for some, what a lot of companies would do is they will have a fund created here. They have a local counterpart, and if it's a company to company, normally they don't charge you with tax.
Uh-huh.
So this is the good part about investing in big companies that are part of the index, because this is why you're really you know getting uh, the big difference. So if we were to look at where the stock market is today, the key word is build. They're all blue chip. You just have to think long term, meaning for the time that you're holding the company, maybe 2-3 years down the road, you are compensated by a dividend yield of 5 to 6%, which is still higher than inflation. And probably in your country, you won't have that you won't have that yield. So I think this is something that is worth looking at in terms of dividend yield. And then at the moment, there is a discount. You can have another D, which means it's a dividend. So this gives you a very lucrative, and the risk. If you were to probably ask me what would be the risk at this point in time, this will be more, I think, just to highlight it with a pen, I think is something closer to a level of around 5,800 to 6,000. So again,
Uh-huh.
very similar to where we were. So again, if there's going to be more escalation of the geopolitical tensions and oil breaks 100, then these levels will be where the market would probably see some value, 5,800 to around 6,000.
Mhm.
And I think the next slide with the
So you
peso.
think the next year it will be at 8,500? It's if it's optimistic scenario, and if there will be further geopolitical tensions, it can be something about 6,000.
Yes, that's for end of 2024.
So it's a 20% growth or something like flat or a little bit lower.
Yes. But I think if we were to, of course, if you invest this year, most likely the gains that you will be expecting will be in 2025, 2026. So it's just a question of either enter now or enter towards end of the year. That depends. I think the key factor really is that you want to look at the potential discount against the market. Second is that you already have a dividend yield of 6%. So the dividend of 6%, I don't know what rates you have there for either a 5-10 year rate, but the 6% dividend yield is quite high. Normally, it's just around 3 to 4%, but because of the price adjustment, a 5 to 6% is already a typical REITs, real estate investment trust here in the Philippines. So, of course, other thing to add is that the peso now is at 57. So this actually gives you a potential gain because if you invest at 57 and we go through the right channels of registering your investment so you can buy through the system when you sell, most likely the peso will improve. So you'll also have some currency gain back to 55 if things do better in 2025 or in 2026. So if let's say we go to as low as 6,000 for 2024, most likely the adjusted forecast for 2025 is around 7.5. It's still going to be a very hefty gain for the market.
Jonathan, can I ask you a question?
Go ahead, ma'am.
How can Russians invest on the Philippine Stock Exchange now?
Okay, so basically, what most of the funds, they will go through a online stockbroker. They will ask you to open an account with them, and then you will transfer funds to their custodian account. So you have a choice whether to, in my presentation, I've added a few of these top 15 brokers. But if you
Mhm.
ask me, I would be very biased for number 8. I used to work for the biggest bank, so I would often suggest the BDO Securities to
BDO
help you
or
open the account.
or BPI? You said 9?
Uh, ah, if you're talking about an online,
Uh-huh.
then BPI Trade,
Uh-huh.
number 9.
Uh-huh.
But for some people who are more comfortable, because there's two ways of trying to execute your orders.
Uh-huh.
Executing orders for most of when I used to be with the bank, because there was no Zoom at that time. So we would literally use Viber to
Yeah.
make the order. So what they do, just to confirm, is that they would send us an email ahead
Uh-huh.
of time. We present to them a strategy like what I do now for some clients. I prepare a plan for them, then uh, they eventually decide, and then we appoint a broker to execute their trades.
Okay, thank you. And one more questions. Uh,
So
how
it's
much should I start on my clients to invest in the Philippines market?
Okay, it really depends on how much exposure you want. In the Philippines, we're very poor in, as little as 10 to $30,000 we're willing to take in the account. We just
Really?
Yes. So this is how hungry Philippine brokers are in trying to get foreign investors to come to the Philippines. So
Surprise for me.
so this is a challenge. So a $10,000 to open is, I think, the more to start off.
So and it's no problem for foreign investors to open an account with online brokers, or they
Yes.
should visit country to open account.
There's no need. I think once you have most of the time, we would for some countries that we have very good relations in terms of um the embassies. We normally do our KYC, or know your client. We go through the embassy, and that there's this people. So we make our own verifications. So the nice thing about whether you do the online broker or like with BDO, you send all the documents, we will tell you, and then at least there's a person. I think that will make you more comfortable is you're able to talk to somebody and tell you that, all right, we've received your money, we'll set up your account, tell us what you want. So either BDO, you have BPI Securities, or although it's not here, the more popular one, and it's listed, is the Call Financial Group, number 12. They're a listed company, but they do a lot of retail brokering. But you want to trade with the two big banks in the Philippines because they have their ears to the ground.
Mm-hmm. And about money transfer. So is it can there be some problems to send money to Philippines from Russia? I mean, because of sanctions and so on.
No, as long as you're able to, okay, because most of this is going to be more on the financial side. There's no problem. If it's retail, we never encountered some issues,
Mhm.
unless they're all related to oil. But financials, we don't have any problem for retail individuals.
Mhm. And
So
then
that's why, sorry, that's why it's best to transact big banks, because they will already give you a feedback if there
Uh-huh.
are issues.
Uh-huh. Oh, okay. And then for an investor trying to get his money back to his own country, are there any currency control or something?
Ano, there's none. I think the only thing that, as I mentioned earlier, if you make an investment and let's say you do it through a bank, like BDO or BPI, there's another bank, Metro Bank, which is another listed company. What they do is they will, once you bring in your $10,000, you will be given a receipt, a virtual receipt that tells you, all right, you can buy the $10,000 and whatever proceeds of your investments
Uh-huh.
through the exchange, meaning through the banks. You don't need documents, because in the Philippines, to buy dollars, you need to be able to present documents. But since
Uh-huh.
you're an investor and
Uh-huh.
you've already registered, let's say with BDO or BPI, they will vouch for you and allow you to buy from the system. So what does it mean? It means that you're able to buy it cheaper compared to buying it from the black market.
Uh-huh. So you do have currency controls, but it's for Filipinian only.
No.
No?
The there's no currency control. What we have are rules just to show that
Uh-huh.
we record the investments.
Uh-huh.
Meaning, if let's say you sent me money
Mhm.
and I just receive it and I don't make a proper documentation. If you need for me to return the money to you, I will have to buy it uh with another document to tell me that why am I buying dollars. But
Uh-huh.
because you are making an investment, the bank will already made the record, and
Mhm.
anytime that you want to buy dollars, you will have no problem.
Okay. And about taxes, as I understand, dividends is withholding tax and our capital gain. Uh,
Okay, in the
will it be taxed
Philippines,
in Philippines, or it will be my problem in my country?
no, you will be taxed in the Philippines.
Taxed in Philippines. Mhm.
Yes. So the dividend tax is 10%. When you sell your shares, you'll be
Uh-huh.
charged 1/4 of 1%.
Sorry, 1/3 of 1%. So
1/4, 0.25 of 1%.
0.25 of
Of
1%.
1%.
Oh, it's a so small tax on capital gain.
Yes. No, because that's the stock, that's for the stock market. So for
Uh-huh.
trading, it's 1/4 of 1%. It's only for real estate that you have a hefty fine for capital gains, which is
Uh-huh.
around 20%.
So at real estate it's 20%, and in stock market it's less than 1%
Yeah.
of from capital gain.
Yeah. So you're better off really investing in the stock market. As I said earlier today, the Securities and Exchange Commission, which governs the stock market, have announced that they've taken the floor for commission charges a broker. So there's no more minimum commission. So right now, typical brokers would charge 1/4 of 1%.
Mhm.
So in the coming weeks, we will get to know more of what the impact of the new law is.
Mhm. And how many foreign investors are already there?
Okay, in terms of the daily trades, it's a 50-50 trade, meaning
Ah.
50% of the trading volume are locals. And prior to the sell-off last week, foreigners accounted for around 60%.
Okay. And local investments, it's mostly private persons or some maybe pension funds or what they are?
Okay, so roughly 20% are the pension funds, the rest are retail investors.
Uh-huh. Quite nice.
Mhm. So
Okay.
most of the stocks that I mentioned are mostly for that I mentioned here are mostly for the institutional and those that are willing to hold on longer, because these are opportunities that comes every 5 years. So you want to take advantage of those.
Mm-hmm. Kate?
Yeah, Jonathan, hi, it's Kate speaking. Just to clarify with the taxes and fees, you said 0.25. Is it the
Yeah.
tax that I
Okay,
have to
the
pay?
commission is 1/4 of 1%.
Okay,
But also the commission is buying and selling is on both sides are 0.25%.
0.25.
so
And,
double, let's say double commission, right? 0.25 once and 0.25 second time, correct?
Yeah.
So it's
Yes.
a fee. It's a fee for trading, for selling and buying, right?
Yes. But
And
right
what
now,
about? Mhm.
as I said, there's a new earlier this afternoon, they've lowered the minimum commission rate. So we're still waiting for the guideline. So this amount could still be lowered.
Okay, I got it. So just to make clear, and what about the taxes? Let's say I bought some assets for $1,000, and after a month I sold it for $1,500, right? So my how you say guys, как будет доход, забыла.
Okay. So
Capital gain
basically,
tax.
capital gain.
Yeah,
you
let's
don't.
say I earned
Okay.
$1,000. So how much will be the tax?
Okay, so out of the 500, you will be taxed. You're going to be taxed 0.25 of 1%. So it's a
Still.
very small tax. So from your gain of 500, you take the 1%, and then you'll be charged. You'll only be charged roughly a very few of 1% of 500.
So it's the tax and the fee at the same time, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like a stamp duty, you mean? So you pay it from the gain or you are paying from the volume of the deal?
Oh, if it is the sale, it's only on the sale. They will compute it on the sale. So on the buy side, there's no tax.
So it's the stamp duty. So you are paying stamp duty when you are selling your securities from the whole amount of the deal, not from the capital gain, but from the whole.
But it's rather small.
Money. but just 1%. It's okay. Quite nice.
And do we have a double how you say a double side treaty between Russia and Philippines to avoid double taxes?
Okay, there will be no double taxing because it's stamp duty, and
Okay.
we are not have stamp duty here.
Yeah, there's none, because what you're basically paying is a transaction sort of transaction tax. So you are the one to eventually declare if it is an income or not.
Okay, I got it. Thank you so much.
Quite nice. Okay, so stamp duty. You finished with your presentation, yeah?
Yeah.
And guys, do you have questions for Jonas?
Just done with my questions. Small taxes is the best gift for the market.
Yeah, so I guess this is the proper time to I guess it depends on how you'd like to
Mhm.
start off. You can come as a group. I think that would actually be better. So it's easy for and this is what we've been telling a lot of if you're an established group, then it's much easier to just be the organization, and
Mhm.
you just divide the income. Makes it easier to do a lot of transactions.
Do you have some kind of ETFs on Philippine market?
There are
They
a
popular?
yes. There are a lot of ETFs. Mostly it's done by banks
Mhm.
and some mutual companies that eventually provide that. Mostly the top 3 banks will have this ETFs. So the problem with the ETFs is that they're fully mimicking the index.
Yes.
So if the index starts falling, then
Yeah, I understand. So it's okay.
uh,
But what are average total expense ratio for ETFs at Philippines?
normally they charge around 4%.
4%.
Yeah.
So quite big
Yeah.
expenses.
That's exactly why when I used to be with the bank,
Mhm.
I always tell our clients to just buy the stock. Don't
Uh-huh.
buy the ETFs, because they're charged, they're paying their salaries for the 4%.
Jonathan, which assets do your clients buy more often, stocks or index funds?
Most of the clients that I used to handle, we buy stocks. Even
Because
the
index funds are more
Very diversified,
More
but
expensive.
expensive, yes.
4%, it's too much.
Okay, let me put it this way. People who buy ETFs, especially for those that are foreign, because they believe they can't monitor everything in the Philippines
Yeah.
or in any country. Now, what I tell the clients that we advise, now that I'm out of the bank, what we tell them is we present to you a portfolio. So you give us an amount, we give you the potential, so that you will, while you're holding it, we will have a dividend yield that will compensate for you holding. If you hold ETFs and the market, assuming that, let's put it this way, I am a realist. So what's happening geopolitically could escalate in the coming months and put oil above 100. So we can probably say that today the terrorist is no longer Middle Eastern. They're the Americans. They're all in all the theaters of war. Whether you talk about Europe, Asia, you talk about the Middle East. Now, it's good for them because they have the biggest oil reserve, the oil shale, and the
Mhm.
cost is at $70. So $100 or so, they'll make so much money. Okay. Now, if you hold ETFs, and a lot of people do, my fear is that it's like you're watching a movie in a cinema. If you don't know where the exit, once somebody shouts fire, everybody will leave. Then you'd probably say, oh, I'll also sell my ETFs. But if I hold on to the stock, I still get the 6%. I'll forget about the price. I'll make sure I still get the 6%. Right? As long
Mhm.
as you have a committed volume that you are comfortable to hold, and you don't expect to withdraw the money.
Mhm.
So this is the most important. That's why the strategy that I tell our clients or my clients is that, one, you invest in assets that will appreciate over time. The second one is invest in assets that will give me recurring income. That's dividends. Now, we can if you're not comfortable of holding so much companies, we can go for rental income, which are REITs, real estate investment trust. So they offer a yield of around 4 to 5%. So these are mostly the mall operators. Okay. So the other one is invest in assets that will be a jackpot, meaning this will be the next biggest bank, probably the biggest mall operator, the next best telco player. So that has a lot of risk. But probably if we're looking at 5 to 10 years down the road, that can give you the biggest gain.
Mhm. Can you see any competitors from other countries, from Indonesia, from China, or something?
Well, basically the other market that people are looking at are Vietnam.
Vietnam. Mhm.
Yeah, I guess the idea there is that if you monitor the news, all the infrastructure that they're doing, the US is supportive. They provide the money. Unlike the Philippines, we eventually borrow money to put up our infrastructure. But for the likes of Vietnam, because they want to bring out their investments out of China and they go to Vietnam. So this is the US.
Yeah,
So
okay.
that's why people feel they want to invest in Vietnam.
Mhm.
And do you have some fixed income instruments? Some
Yes,
Like
there are
bonds, you mean?
government securities that will give you at least 6%. Right now, the interest on a 10-year bond is around 6%.
It's
Oh.
government bonds and corporate bonds.
Corporate bonds can give you around 9 to 10%. But given the present situation, at best, stick to government.
London, are we talking about 6% in dollars or in Philippines currency?
No, this is in Philippine currency. Forget the dollar. The dollar is giving you 5 on the 10-year. We're giving it to you at close to 7%.
Rubbish.
Plus, if you hold that, if you put it in Philippine peso now and the peso depreciates, and if you look at it 5 years down the road, I don't think the peso will weaken. The peso will strengthen. So you'll have additional gain if you do a combination of fixed income and then a little bit of equities.
Okay.
So this is what I do for family, for my clients in the ASEAN. So what they do is they give me a committed money, and then eventually I give them the trade plan. So we eventually just, I just have a retainer for them of giving the advice. So this is that's what I do.
Mhm. Is it comfortable for foreign investors with language maybe problems in banks, or everybody will speak English?
Oh, everybody will speak English. There's no problem.
Uh-huh. Quite nice.
And
Mhm.
did you mention previously the ICN company or I misheard you?
No,
It's
I
not
didn't
this
say
Asian.
anything.
Asian.
Okay. Just to make sure.
Jonas, if you can help us to guide into investments, I think you will have some your charge for your services.
Yes. What I do is I create the portfolio. You just give me the amount. We will give you the fee structure. We would always update you on a quarterly basis of what's happening if you were to add. So my strategy is not just about what's happening in the news. We will do a little bit of technicals, meaning looking at charts. So so that we're able to do two things. So fundamentals, I think I've already shown you the main pattern of my strategy, which is looking at the multi-baggers, meaning what I will look for companies. I've also given you my investment mantra, which is I think the key factor that you have to look at three things are assets that will appreciate over time, assets that will give you recurring income, and I think one you'd like is what could be a jackpot. So meaning this could be the next companies. So this is what you want to hold on for a longer time period. And I think the key factor there really that you have to give me is the key important asset, which is time. So that we're able to give you how much time do you want to hold for let's say a company that will appreciate over time. So you'll notice that I gave you in the charts that I've shared, which you can Andre, you can share to everybody, is that I give you the gestation periods, so that if this materializes, this will be the potential. So we're able to compute for that.
Mhm.
Now, there are also other companies that are what we call, they're, for a lack of a better word, is that this is for trading. Meaning, there are certain companies that some clients of mine would give me an amount that we can trade. Meaning, you give me full discretion, and we make 5-10% every other day. And we're able to generate some activity. So this used to be my job. So normally
so,
I would
yes,
the
about your
average
charge.
return.
Yeah, your
Okay.
fee.
So
Yeah.
okay, the fee, the fee will depend on what you need. But
Mhm.
basically what we do is that we have um an entrance fee of 1.5 million pesos. So the 1.5 billion pesos, we eventually create the trade plan for you. So you give us what you need. So
It's fixed fee.
it's a fixed fee for the first
Yeah.
time.
Yes.
So once I give you the strategy,
Mhm.
it's up to you to make the adjustment. And then every year we charge the same amount of 1.5 for the updates. So
So
I don't.
so it's a flat
Oh,
fee,
it's a
without
flat
any
fee.
dependence from the AUM or from the
Ah,
profits. Nothing.
because what I'm sharing with you is the market advisory. If you want the portfolio type, we can do a combination of I charge a 4%
Mhm.
every 6 months, provided that we take profits.
Uh-huh.
So
4%
if
from
there
AUM or from the profit?
from the profit.
From the profit.
Yeah, so if there are no profits, then you don't pay me anything. That's why I've separated more of the market advisory, because that's where you need, especially for most of the family offices that I advise. This is more important to them than the profits, than the portfolio, because we are looking at long term.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
I can send you a formal quote, and then I'll if you have any questions, we can do another Zoom, and then
Yeah.
at least
Okay.
I'll give a sample. You just have to give me an amount that you'd like to look at, and then so I can give you the breakdown.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
So, guys, do you have any questions more? Kate and Kate.
All right.
No more. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you. I hope you do invest in the Philippines.
We're looking into it.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
it looks quite nice.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Just
Daria,
just
do you
just
have some questions?
Oh, me?
You.
No, I I'm just asking it few minutes ago. I like bonds. I like fixed income.
okay. I think if the fixed income, there's no problem, because what we do is that once you open an account, once we open an account for you, most likely the structure of the funds is that they're not with the broker. The funds are in a clearing house. So if something happens to the broker, we go directly to the clearinghouse. Same thing when it comes to fixed income, the bonds. You will have an account with the Bureau of Treasury, so under
Uh-huh.
the bank's name.
Mhm.
So
So
if you
clients'
really want
accounts
to
are
do that.
separated from the brokers.
Yes.
Mhm. And
So
the
there's a different
custody.
one for
Only
fixed
for
income. There's
bonds.
a-
Yeah.
No,
yes.
no. For everything, I think. All clients'
For
accounts are
bonds and
separated.
they're separate accounts.
Yes. And the custody is a government body or it's a commercial company?
It's for the exchange, it's a private company, which is the stock exchange
It's
itself.
exchange.
Yeah. On the fixed income, it's the Bureau of Treasury. It's the government.
Uh-huh. Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Mhm.
Maybe
Oh,
Jonathan has any inquiries for us.
No, I'm just going to wait for how much amount you want to invest. I will give you a proposal, and I can help you because this is a proper time to really invest. So I have other clients from other countries like
Do you
Portugal.
have some client from Russia? Or maybe
Uh,
CIS
Not
countries?
we do, but they're from Yugoslavia.
Oh, okay.
So we have a few we have a few set of clients that are Russian. So we did not encounter any issues unless they're oil related. Then that's the time we definitely tell them that we have a way to shift your issue. I would refer you to another person in my department, in my advisory, to do that job, because a lot of things are happening in there's a real need, whether it's steel or oil. As long as we have the proper documents, I can pass you on to the right person. So most of the Russian imports, whether steel or oil, they go through South Korea.
Uh-huh.
So that's why when we buy Russian vodka, we get it from South Korea.
Okay. Since we don't have any more questions, I think we should say thank you, Jonas, and
Yeah.
I think we'll see you again after we'll have
Yeah.
some questions more. We are rather cautious because it's we are working for clients, and it's rather unpleasant thing. Then clients will be unhappy. So we are.
No, I think what I normally tell the client, I always give them a required return. So most of the returns that I tell them is primarily driven by a fixed income rate. So I would normally give them a 1-year rate of around 3%, 3 to 4%, that I think is guaranteed,
Uh-huh.
because I will eventually buy a bond that will provide that. So
Yeah,
once
okay.
I have that, and then I tell them we can come up with a structure that that can also yield for you. If you say we do the 3 to 4%, you perform better than 4%, then there's an escalation return on your part. Because we can also do, when it comes to the question of bond, I can create a bond that already guarantees your foreign exchange. I will do a engineered
You
swap.
mean it will be a structured product with
Yes.
currency
So that
hedge?
not yes, it's a currency hedge for the fixed income. So you already
Okay.
get directly the yield.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Okay. So you just give me the amount, Andre, and then I will make a plan, and then you can think about it. Huh?
Yes, of course. Thank
All
you very
right.
much, John. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Have a nice
Thank
day,
So
you.
much.
everyone.
Have a nice day.
Good night.
Ciao, ciao.
Yes, bye.